Welcome to an UnConference about students with additional needs in remote learning environments. Produced by Benetech, Bridge Multimedia, and CAST, with support from the U.S. Department of Education, Institute of Education Sciences, and the Office of Special Education Programs. Ideas that work. Module 2, Personalized Parent-Child Supports. Supporting deaf, hard-of-hearing students. Interactive parent-child activities for student on the autism spectrum. Adaptive sports, ways to stay physically on track during COVID-19. Remote inclusive theater and music. Let's hear from one of our remote rock stars to talk about technology for remote learning during COVID-19.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Bouguet, and I am the Assistive Technology Specialist for Loudoun County Public Schools, which is in Northern Virginia. Loudoun County Public Schools has always known that collaboration among different departments is a key to success in the area of accessibility. At the time of the closure, 3 immediate steps were taken with regard to ensuring accessibility. The first was for curriculum supervisors from the Department of Instruction to lead interdisciplinary teams to curate content to provide to families. These teams included personnel from the Office of Special Education to ensure a focus on accessible materials to meet the needs of all learners. Once curated, the next step was to organize the resources in a fashion most consumable for families. A continuity of education website was created, which shares resources organized by elementary, middle, and high. Resources pertaining to accessibility were prioritized and prominently displayed at the top of each site. Additionally, a site specific to special education was created to share resources for populations with specific needs, such as adapted curriculum, augmentative/alternative communication, blind and visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, variable fine and gross motor abilities, early childhood special education, specialized reading and math, and transition services. And that's how we've helped put accessibility and universal design for learning at the forefront of everything we do here in Loudoun County Public Schools.
Our next track, titled Personalized Parent-Child Supports, features 4 experts from around the country who bring their passion for collaborative teaching to us. Uma Soman, PhD, Listening and Spoken Language. Amy Parker, PhD, Reading, Writing, and Self-Regulation. Frank Hughes, Adaptive Physical Education. And Aubrey Therian and Nicole D'Angelo, Neuro-Inclusive Theater and Music. Please welcome Dr. Uma Soman, Certified Auditory Verbal Educator and Listening Together co-founder. She will present personalized remote support for deaf and hard of hearing students.
Hello, my name is Uma Soman. I'm a teacher of deaf and hard of hearing students. Today, I would like to spend a few minutes talking to you about supporting students who are deaf and hard of hearing during this remote learning situation. So the information shared today is meant to be applicable to a broad, diverse, vibrant group of learners, their families, and the educators or related service providers who support them. In Illinois, we're in day 50-something of school closures. To me, what that has meant is I often see school-age children after school for individual academic support, tutoring for some of them. Children not being at school has really created some challenges in how children are engaging in learning and accessing information. The 3 big areas of challenges that I have seen are limited access to curriculum and instruction. And this could be simply not having access to the modality that the information is presented in, or the content not being matched to what the child is learning. Sometimes it's just technology limitations that prevent full access to curriculum and instruction are a real challenge at this time. The other challenge is related to access and engagement with communication partners. Children learn best through engagement. Children learn from each other. And when children are having to learn in isolation by themselves with very limited socialization or group time, it is impacting the kinds of language models they have. Sometimes it's just the technology setup that doesn't allow them to participate. And sometimes it's the structure of the remote learning plan where children don't have the ability to socialize or hear from each other and so on. The third area of challenge is minimal or limited access to individualized, specialized instruction. While individual team members might be providing some support, but definitely not all the minutes that have been written into a child's IEP. And if we think about it as just a negative impact, next year seems pretty bleak, and even right now seems pretty bleak. So my philosophy is, when life gives you lemons, you can make lemonade, sure. But you can also make lemon squares and upside down lemon cake and Greek lemon soup and lemony orzo, to each his own. Individualized instruction at its best. So I'm going to talk about some interventions, but given the diverse needs of students who are deaf and hard of hearing, I will talk about some guidelines, 5 guidelines, rather than specific interventions, and then share resources related to these specific interventions. The first guideline I want to share with you today is being individualized. An individualized approach is what we use when we are in school in person, and I think the same can apply to remote learning. It starts by identifying what is the goal of this time together, of this remote learning period. Do we want to keep up? Do we want to catch up since we have all this extra time? Or while we know we might not be making the same progress or the rate of progress, do we want to keep moving up? As long as this goal aligns with the family's learning outcome or desired outcome, we can follow the child's lead to develop a plan based on a topic that the child is interested in. Maybe the child wants to learn about electricity. One of my students said, I want to learn about electricity. And I said, okay, I will embed your language, speech, listening, literacy, writing targets into the topic of electricity, and we will learn about that. The second guideline is that of quality over quantity. You don't have to be with the child all day long, but if you and the child and any caregiver who is working with the child can engage in some anchor activities, the child can then follow them up with independent activities by themselves or with their siblings, or some combination of it not being super parent driven, but rather more independent. An example would be reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So in The Very Hungry Caterpillar book, the caterpillar eats many, many, many food items and goes through a metamorphosis and then becomes a butterfly. If the parent and the child can read this book together, talk about it together, build the language that goes in the book together, then the child can independently work on follow-up activities such as sorting fruits and vegetables, coloring the pictures in the book, making their own story, pretending to be the caterpillar, and eating through many different items. Reading in all its forms, including audiobooks and story videos, could serve as these anchor activities that are enhancing language and literacy to areas that are often greatly impacted in children who are deaf and hard of hearing. The third guideline I have is families as leaders. In family-centered early intervention, the idea is that we are coaching families to be leaders, to be experts on their child. And I think we need to go back to that idea even with school-age children, so that we are helping the families be the experts on their child, so that when we come back to school, we have this new information, this up-to-date information about where the child is, where the child needs to start, and where we are headed with the new IEP. Guideline 4 is about access. Access to communication modality, that is the child's preferred modality, is key. And it is difficult to have all of this just fall in place day one, but that's where parents, professionals could be advocating for appropriate access And if the child is at an age where they could participate in the process, I see this as an opportunity for children to understand their access needs and learn to advocate appropriately for their access. The fifth guideline I want to share is considering the whole child. While language and literacy communication is often what we focus on for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, the factors of listening fatigue from constant listening online or visual fatigue from constantly paying attention to what's happening, whether it's reading a person's lips or watching a person sign. Listening fatigue and visual fatigue are real things, are real phenomenon that impact the health, well-being, and even mental health of children who are deaf and hard of hearing. So addressing mental health issues and not letting children, quote unquote, fall apart is key. Expression through art, craft, something that is not taxing the child to use language, to use communication, to listen, to speak, to sign, to cue, might be a way to address some of these concerns, along with rest and downtime. And for all the parents, professionals, and the audience, I have to say, this starts with self-care. If you can take care of yourself, your children are going to respond to that and help you take care of them. I would like to share some resources with you that will help you and guide you in implementing some of the suggestions I have shared today. So the first resource I want to highlight is the Alexander Graham Bell Association website. It has a special section for learning at home, and it has multiple educational activities, links to these activities, as well as a detailed explanation of communication access and options and apps for that. A similar setup is available on the National Association of the Deaf website. As the third resource here is the Hanson Voices Parent Organization website, which is an organization of parents across communication modalities who are in various stages of life. The fourth resource I want to highlight is See Here Communication Matters, which is a website and blog maintained by Tina Childress. Tina is an educational audiologist. She is a bilateral implant user herself and fluent in ASL. These are resources that will help you feel like you are not alone. This is a lot to take in. There are people ready and willing to help. I want to end on a poem. This is a poem written by one of my students, Isaac. He is a high schooler who uses bilateral cochlear implants. And in honor of National Poetry Month last month, he wrote this poem. The title is, If It Weren't for the Pandemic. If it weren't for the pandemic, I would not have gotten good at drawing. I would not have started a YouTube channel. I would not have learned Japanese. I would not be gardening. I would not have removed 2 large bushes in 2 hours. Thank you, pandemic. I love that Isaac has discovered that in addition to being good at reading and writing and getting ready for college, he is now also getting good at all these other things. I would love to hear from you. What is resonating with you? What can you try? How can you make the best of this situation that we are in? I have included both of my email addresses on this slide and would be happy to hear from you and hear more about how you are applying these principles in your interactions with your children. Thank you.
Now, one of our student UnConference remote rock stars, deaf performance artist and 4th grader Savannah Dayan, to answer, what is COVID-19? Text, social media handle @SavvyASL. Now, Savannah and a younger blonde girl sign while an announcer reads accompanying captions.
Hey! I just learned about something new. coronavirus. It can also be known as COVID-19. Penelope, how do we sign coronavirus? Roar!
Penelope charges away, imitating a roaring monster. Savannah continues.
You might have noticed a number of cases going up. And schools closing everywhere. You're not sure why it is happening. Allow me to explain. Imagine me as a coronavirus. I become excited when I see kids at school because I'm able to spread infection faster in a group. Social distancing prevents the spread of infection with kids staying at home. I have nowhere else to go but disappear. How do we minimize the spread of coronavirus? Wash your hands. Must. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. You may count or practice alphabet in your head. Or even better, dance your heart out while washing your hands. You can wash your hands in many different ways. If you feel the need to cough, bring your cape out.
Savannah pretends to drape herself in a cape, bringing her inner elbow in front of her mouth.
I suggest you to stay at home and avoid the playground because coronavirus can spread from the playground. If you go to the playground and play with kids, your health could be put at risk and become sick. When you stay at home and become bored, you can read, draw, and play games like Tag It, Hide and Seek, or puzzles. It is time to be creative. Remember, stay healthy and remain calm. Everything will be okay. Bye!
Next on our track, titled Personalized Parent-Child Supports, let's welcome Dr. Amy Parker, COMS, Reading, Writing, and Self-Regulation, Portland State University. Dr. Parker will demonstrate interactive parent-child activities.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Amy Parker. I'm an assistant professor at Portland State University, and I'm pleased here to be with you today to talk about how a highly preferred object or fascination can be used as opportunities to build reading, writing, and self-reflection. Let's get started. So as you look at this slide in front of us today, we know that many children, of course, don't just have one disability, and those disability categories don't mean just one thing. But one thing that remains consistent for students with disabilities and for all children is, I'm on the next slide, we need to engage in serve and return. So this is from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child, all the best research in the world, really, that talks about how to support children with complex communication needs involves developing this rapport, this serve and return. On the screen, you see an image here of two people playing tennis, and that's a metaphor for this back and forth that we need in terms of play, in terms of emotional regulation, in terms of communication. And that back and forth, you and me, becomes a pattern that actually supports all of development. But when this is interrupted for some reason, because a child has difficulty seeing or hearing us, or because a child has difficulty neurologically engaging or with their attention, we need to be very intentional about how we set up opportunities to engage in this behavior and to enjoy this behavior with our students and children. So I want to tell you a simple story now about a young girl that I met several years ago. Her mother called me, and her name is Kay. One thing that you should know is that this child was just diagnosed with autism. Her mother let me know right away that she had had visual impairment, that they knew about the visual impairments from birth, and the challenges were there from birth. But let's look at this video together. And you're being very gentle with my hair. Thank you. I'm going to put the... Yes. Yes. I just love her Southern accent, don't you? Here's the word butt heads, 2 words. And here's a card that says, what does it say? Connor. Does this say Connor? Look carefully. What does it say? It doesn't say anything. There's no letters on that one. Here. I'm going to put the cards up here. So I've put the cards for her up on a chair.
We're playing with Miss Amy.
She says, "Good job playing with Miss Amy."
Find butt heads. Can you find it?
So I've actually presented her with a card that has letters and a card that has nothing on it.
Nothing on it. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing on there. No letters. This one has letters that say butt heads. Okay, let's do it. Do it. Butt heads. We did butt heads. Butt heads. And we can write stories about butt heads. That Connor likes to butt heads. Connor likes to butt heads. Connor. Okay?
A lot of echolalia going on, as you can tell.
Writing wall. Come to me. Our writing wall, where we're gonna play and write and play. Good coming. Good. Yes, baby. You want to give Mommy the rubber band so you guys can play with the writing wall? No.
I love that she says no.
Let me just go a little while.
Do you want to do this? No.
Good. We'll give it back. Okay. We'll give it to Mommy, and then you can have it back. Oh, thank you. Excellent giving. We're going to write a story or a song about butting heads. Okay? All right? Yes. Yes. This is fun because then we can do it. Okay, but before we butt heads, we have to write a story about it. Okay? What do we want a story? Who wants to butt heads?
Carson wants to butt.
Okay. Carson. S-E-N. Come here. You have to come to the writing wall. We have to write it first. Carson wants to do what? To butt heads. Carson wants to butt heads.
She's running out of patience with me now.
We're going to write about it. So we just wrote a story. Read it to me. Let's use our fingers. Let's use our fingers. You're doing good, then we'll do it. Carson wants to butt heads. Okay, so we do it. Ready? Butt heads. Butt heads. Do it again. Butt heads. Okay. So Carson. What are the words in our story about butting heads? This one, and that one says.
Butting heads.
That says butt heads or butting heads. Good. It says butt heads. Who else is in our story? Who?
Connor.
Connor with a C. Good, touching the Connor card. Good. And who else is in our story? There are two more cards of people in our story.
Around.
We've already done butt heads. We've already done Connor. Now who else is in our story? Can you tell me who?
Around.
All ram is not really a word.
Well, if we
So she's losing patience with this
we can
right
start
now.
playing with the rubber band for a little bit. Would you like that? Okay, so to finish our story, tell me the names on these cards of who's in our story about butt heads.
Amy.
Oh, good reading. That card says Amy. Good work. What else? Who else? Carson and Amy and Connor.
But you can see the way that kind of an odd interest in butting heads could be used for a story. Now, many of you might be saying, well, the kids that I work with or my own child would not even have patience up until that point. And that may be true. But sometimes you have to take the smallest things to weave together those interests. This very simple map is called a preferences map. We all know these things that work and things that don't work. with our kids or with our students, and we have to go with the things that work. That's the building block for this serve and return, for this foundation of communication. Because if you want to communicate with somebody that doesn't have a good communication system, you need to start with something that's really, really motivating and meaningful to them. And it can be a little weird, right? Sometimes kids are interested in mouse pads or they're interested in one simple toy. But we start from there as a way in, right, to get to this serve and return. So I think of preferences as building blocks. This slide has multicolors of crayons on here. And if you're working with students that have more language or have more capacity to communicate with you, you can scale up on this practice, right? You can involve students to contribute images, to contribute objects that are meaningful to them. If you are trying to make friends with somebody, what do? You talk with them about what they want to talk about. You can use different colors or maps or sounds. So these are just different ideas for you that you can get into with domains, thinking about how to expand on those preferences, not only edibles, but experiences, toys, textures, different people. Person-centered planning has been around for a long time, and it's still a really wonderful process to kind of think beyond where a person is right now. So I'll leave you with those thoughts and reference you to the Paths to Literacy website that is created by Perkins Outreach. Paths to Literacy Playing with Words is by Linda Haygood. This is a link to her website that's about playing with words that has many more examples that you can dive into. I'm just so pleased to be with you today, and I hope you have a great conference and that you can find some moments of joy even in the quarantine, and moments to laugh about and connect with your students and children. Thank you.
Now from Bay Aranac, Michigan ISD, one of our special educator remote rock stars to talk about YouTube videos for nonverbal learning, Part 1.
Hi, my name is Audrey McBride. I'm a teacher from Michigan, and I teach elementary and middle school students with severe multiple impairments. So not only is there cognitive impairment, there's usually coupled with another one, either physical, visual, hearing, or a sensory impairment. So obviously, as everyone feels, this pandemic has thrown a bunch of challenges at us. And the biggest thing I wanted to make sure I did was create some normalcy for my students. So what was more normal than seeing me and hearing my voice? So I decided to make videos of myself reading some of our favorite books of the day, and to also throw in some academics with the literacy program that we use. We do a letter of the day. So I was able to video record myself, just reading the stories and using different props and making it fun and engaging. And then for a letter of the day, I took whatever letter it was and found things around my house that had that letter and did the routine just to kind of give some of my students some normalcy. I have 5 students in my classroom. I put these on YouTube on a private channel, so only they had access to it. And with a little under a month, I had almost 1,000 views. So the response was really overwhelming with how much my students were responding and enjoying it. And I also got many accolades from parents who were so grateful that they had their children, who often don't entertain themselves or watch TV or anything, but were able to watch me and were engaged, and mom and dad were able to get something done. So that was really cool to hear. I also use different curriculums such as Readtopia, and I'm able to record myself doing funny things. Sometimes I bring my kids in to get the engagement piece and then record the different lessons. So they're still getting somewhat of a academic lesson. So although it's not as great as being together, it has been, I'd say, the best that it could be.
Next on our track titled Personalized Parent-Child Supports, let's lace up with Frank Hughes, adaptive phys ed teacher, Colonial School District, Delaware, and a Special Olympics Unified Champion School. Mr. Hughes' presentation is titled Adaptive Sports, Ways to Stay Active and Keep Physically on Track.
Hi, my name is Frank Hughes. I'm an adaptive physical education teacher at the John G. Leach School in Colonial School District, Delaware. We are a Special Olympics Unified Champion School. Now with the quarantine, it's important to remember that we need to continue to avoid a backslide. We need to continue to progress in our physical skills. And the shift right now is to think of our education in more of an individualized skills attempt instead of strategy games. We're looking at open skills versus closed skills. When you have an open skill, you're in an open environment. There are other influences that can impact the outcome of a skill. Whereas now, being at home in a quarantine, we're working in a closed environment with less influences that can impact the way that the skill has been conducted. When your child was at school and they're participating in physical activity, they're in an open environment. Things around them are changing constantly, and it's influencing their performance on their skills. Where now we're at home and we're looking at closed concept skills. There are less outside influences that are going to impact the performance and the skill performance. First thing to get through as a parent is getting started. Thinking as a parent, saying to yourself, I've never done this before, and where do I even start? The first place you start is where we all start in education, is we do a mini assessment of your child's physical skills. Knowing your child's abilities will help you determine where you'd like to continue to progress them in their abilities. You don't need to purchase athletic gear. We can make household items work for the skills that we're trying to complete. Looking at 3 concept areas, locomotor skills, stationary skills, object control skills, are 3 great places to start for you to develop an understanding of what your child needs and what you'd like to improve on with your child. Locomotor skills such as jumping, hopping, galloping, learning coordination from their left side to their right side. Those are just a few locomotor skills. Stationary skills, working on balancing, working on mirroring. Can your child mirror you with your arms out, arms up, arms down? Continuing to work on your child's ability to mirror will continue to develop their skills. In terms of object control skills, we don't need to break the bank, go to the store, and buy multiple objects to throw. We can simply use a balled up pair of socks. And this balled up pair of socks can be any type of ball you'd like it to be. As a target, we can use a wash basket. In school, most teachers are not very concerned about the speed that the object is flying at. More, we're worried about the accuracy and where is that object going. Going an overhand throw versus an underhand throw. Learning to differentiate between what is an overhand throw versus what is an underhand throw. Can I overhand throw into the basket? Now that might be too simple for your child's ability, but we can then change this and expand on it. Now what I'm going to use is an iPad. You can use any object you want. Now that the iPad is in place, what in my mind I've created is a basketball court. I have my backboard, I have my basket. I'm going to use the pair of socks that I have, and I want to test my accuracy to see if I can bank it off the backboard and into the basket. Just like that. Other concepts that we can focus on are, what can we do with my child who's in a wheelchair that might not have the ability to overhand or underhand throw? Bowling is a great activity that Special Olympics promotes and has in all of their activities throughout the country. To make your own modified bowling ramp, you can use something such as a pillow. We can put that pillow on your lap, on your child's lap. Take any ball. Now we're sitting on our lap. You can use water bottles as bowling pins or no pins at all and just try to make it through a goal, pushing that ball down off your lap. We don't need to spend all the money we have on a bowling ramp. We can take some pillows and put them on our lap, and now we're creating that ramp for our child. The biggest thing for parents to recognize is the breakdown of skills and breaking these skills down to their simplest form. Throwing at a moving target, throwing at a target that's stationary, dropping an object into a basket, or opening your hand to grip an object. are ways that we can adapt, modify, and break down a skill to its simplest form. Once again, you're looking for your student to learn differentiate between overhand throw and underhand throw. Let's break that down. Overhand throw at a moving target. We're not throwing it where the target is, we're throwing it where the target is going to be. Throwing at a stationary target, going overhand, releasing at the proper point to hit that stationary target. What if your child is working on other abilities such as opening and closing their hands when asked to do so, or what we call on a command? So now we have our child open their hand to accept the object and open their hand to release the object. An important thing to remember is to let your child try this on their own. It's not always necessary to provide hand-over-hand assistance, which is hard for a parent to refrain from doing. Remember, the goal is to just do it. We're not striving for perfection. We're striving for the continued improvement of our children's abilities so that when we get back to school and when we're back in session, our child is able to continue to perform at the level or a greater level than when we had left school. Some additional resources you can use are www.ablenetinc.com, which can give you insight on switch-activated materials and activities, as well as YouTube videos for parents, teachers, and coaches. Facebook Adapted PE Specialists are other resources that you can use to see what other adapted PE teachers throughout the country are doing. For more individualized look, you can go to All Abilities Welcome on Facebook or YouTube. All Abilities Welcome will give you how-to videos to build your own adapted, personalized devices for your children. To learn more about the U.S. Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools programming, supported by generous funding from the U.S. Office of Special Education Programs at the Department of Education, visit our homepage, www.specialolympics.org/our-work/unified-champion-schools. Generation Unified is a youth-focused site for students to learn about the Special Olympics Unified generation. This site uses the power of storytelling and game playing. Check out our extensive video library and our awesome digital inclusion tiles. Visit www.generationunified.org. Research Overview. Want to hear how students and educators of Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools are reporting on the changes they've seen in their schools after implementing the three-component strategy? Visit our research overview with data from our partners at the University of Massachusetts Boston Center for Social Development and Education, https://resources.specialolympix.org/research/overview. I hope we continue to work hard and getting our kids physically active to continue to avoid this backslide. So when we go back to school, our kids' skills are just the way they were or even improved from when we left. Good luck, and I hope to see you all out there.
Now from Bay Aranac, Michigan, ISD, one of our special educator remote rock stars, Audrey McBride, to talk about YouTube videos for nonverbal learning, Part 2.
So the other thing I did was created how-to videos for my parents, realizing that what we do at school sometimes can be very foreign to the parents. And so I needed to make sure that I could empower them to help their child the best that they could. So those were anywhere from how we sign in, how we do independent reading, how we do independent writing, to just some fun things that they can do using core words. All of my students are nonverbal, so they all have a communication device that they use. So it was important to also teach parents how to model and use their communication device to communicate with their child. So my students have multiple needs, and so I got together with our occupational, physical, and speech therapist, and as a team we created a little calendar of activities. So just short, easy things to do around the house that incorporate all those different aspects. So OT could be as simple as taking some dry spaghetti and gluing them onto a piece of paper and tracing with your pointer finger. Or speech was doing an activity and modeling the word help or more. And sensory, getting some dish soap in a bucket of water and giving them a whisk and letting them go to town. So just some things to help incorporate that parents could do easily and to kind of break up the day. So I have had a lot of success with all of those things. And then weekly, we also do Zoom meetings. And so I come up with a weekly theme and we sing songs and read books and interact and do all sorts of fun things and just kind of talk to each other and enjoy being in each other's presence. So just want to tell you to stay strong. We're all in this together and just keep on teaching.
Our personalized parent-child supports track continues with Aubrey Therian, Executive Director of the Epic Players, a neuro-inclusive theater company, and Nicole D'Angelo, teaching artist with the company. They'll be speaking with us about remote inclusive theater and music.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aubrey Therian. I'm the Executive Director for the Epic Players, a neurodiverse theater company in New York City.
I'm Nicole D'Angelo. I'm an autistic actor, musician, and disability advocate. I'm proud to be an Epic player. I also teach a musical theater class for Epic called Broadway Bound.
And we're here to talk to you about how you can use theater concepts through Zoom or other virtual platforms to make this accessible and engaging for your students, not only in theater classrooms, but in any classroom, to keep us feeling connected, engaged, recognized, and then you can transfer this to life skills outside the classroom.
The first thing we're going to talk about is how consistency is important, especially in these times. So at Epic Players, we're really careful to always start classes the same way and end classes the same way. So we'll begin classes by introducing the topic of the day and reviewing our values and our Zoom guidelines. One thing we do is we always throw the drama out of the classroom. And then we warm up our bodies, our minds, and our voices. And you'll see examples of these throughout the presentations. We end every class by talking about epic moments of the day, which might be your favorite thing, something you're proud of, or something someone else did that was particularly epic that day.
Consistency is very important during times like these, but in a virtual classroom setting for sure. So we're going to show you now how you can use technology like Zoom to make your class a bit more accessible and engaging. There are so many wonderful features through Zoom you can use to make your theater classroom structured, yet accessible and varied. Nicole, want to talk about our first tip?
Yeah, so the first thing I have to share with you is that muting is your friend. Muting's a great way to set boundaries, keep the class on track, and it makes directions more clear and audible. You can also use mute and unmute at the beginning of class, before breaks at the end of class, to allow students to freely connect and catch up with each other. But make sure you disable participants' abilities to unmute themselves so that you and your co-teachers can control the room.
And you can actually even use mute to keep students engaged and feeling connected through call and response theater games. So our first example that we're going to show you that you can use in your classroom is a warm-up exercise that we use called tongue twisters. Everybody knows them. Everybody loves them. They're super easy and fun and a great way to make players or students feel like they're participating even though we're in a virtual setting. With these call and response games, a leader demonstrates the phrase while all the participants are on mute. Once the demonstration happens, we press unmute all, and then everybody together can hear their voices and try the game, like this clip.
I'm going to say it once, and then everyone will say it once, and I'll call on a couple of people who want to try it all the way through. Oh, what to do, what to die today at a minute or two past 2. A thing distinctly hard to say, yet harder still to do. For they'll beat a tattoo at 1:45 with a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-too. Now let's try that all together. It's in the chat if you need to look at it.
What to do to die today? Distinctly hard to say, yet harder still to do. For they'll beat a tattoo at 1:45 with a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-too.
You can take this to the next level by using the Spotlight feature found here. This feature allows you to give your students center stage on Zoom. After everyone's tried the tongue twister together, ask, does anyone want to try by themselves? Then you can spotlight that person and mute everyone else so that student has center stage.
I saw Henry's hand go up. Henry?
Okay. I might do this a little fast, if that's okay. Yeah.
Great.
What did you do to die today at a minute or two till 2? A thing distinctly hard to say, yet harder still to do. But I'll beat the tattoo at a quarter to 2 with the rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-
applause that follows ensures that everyone stays engaged, connected, and being recognized during these times.
Another great function on Zoom is the raise hand feature, which is a great way to create structure in your classroom and teach technical skills. By teaching students how to use their raised hands and hearing you say, "I see XYZ's hand," they recognize when it is their time to have the floor.
Reactions like thumbs up and applause are also great ways to show if students understand or want to give encouragement to somebody else. Another game we play utilizing these features is called Give a Thumbs Up If. This is a take on our real life game Cross the Room If, where we learn about each other's likes, dislikes, or secret hobbies. Virtually, we changed this to Give a Thumbs Up If, where the leader of the game prompts, "Give me a thumbs up if you like ice cream." And then all who identify with the prompt give a thumbs up, like this clip.
Today's class is about magic. Give me a thumbs up if you have ever seen a magician perform.
As you saw from the clip, you can take this to the next level by using the chat feature and saying, "Oh, great. Type your favorite ice cream in the chat." A volunteer can read the response out loud and others can interact together in the chat.
So as you can see, recognition and engagement are super important right now, and we want our students to feel seen and heard. That's the definition of performing arts, is somebody performing something for someone else who is watching. And we want to ensure this is happening for our students, even on a virtual platform. We've already been talking about spotlights, which is a great way to give someone the floor or center stage if they're doing something very fun. Another great example of an accessible theater game you can use to highlight students and use this feature is a game we call Lion Face and Lemon Face. Directions to play this game. This is a super easy game where you can ask your students to make their faces and bodies sound very big like a lion, and then change very quickly to make their positions very small and their sounds very small like a lemon. You can then use the spotlight feature to randomly spotlight folks who are making some really great expressions and give them center stage, while this also encourages others to make really bold choices as well. Here's a clip from our past class.
Yes, our lemon faces, we're going to make everything really, really small, really, really tiny, really, really tight. Squeeze our faces together like a lemon. And then we're going to explode, make everything big. Lion faces. And bring it in, lemon face, lemon face. Let me see your best lemon face. I want to see who's got the most lemoniest face. Henry's face is very lemony. I love that face. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, Henry.
And I saw Sean making a very lemony face, very lemon-esque. That's great, Sean.
You can take this to the next level and add even more imagination with an accessible theater game made virtual called Yes, Let's. In this game, you add an improvisation component to the exercise and ask students to join you in acting out anything you want. For example, the leader will say, "Hey everyone, let's act like dinosaurs." You then unmute all students who respond, "Yes, let's," and then remute, while students join you in acting out your prompt. While people are muted, an instructor or volunteer can be audibly recognizing the great images individuals are making and using the spotlight feature like this.
Do you have a suggestion for what we should act like right now?
Terrified. Like,
okay, let's all act terrified.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's
right. Oh, Nick's got a good terrified. Keep it up, Nick. Yeah, that's great. Nice. Oh, John Lucas got a great terrified face. Awesome. Let me see one more. Who's got a great terrified? Oh, Catherine. That's a great terrified face.
This is a great game that gives the teacher the opportunity to teach the first rule of improv, always say yes, and also lets the students have fun and create something together. And sharing audio is a great tool to use when you want to sing or dance together or play any music for your class. Zoom has a function to share audio directly from your computer, which allows for a significantly better audio quality than just playing it through your computer speakers, as you'll see in the next clip.
Moses supposes these roses are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. But Moses, he knows his toes aren't roses, as Moses supposes his toes should be.
Do you see how we also used other techniques there as well, like unmuting and instructors audibly recognizing students? You can also share your screen in the same window where you found the share audio, and you can use this to share your computer screen or a whiteboard to move a lesson along and make it a bit more interactive. We also use this for our emotion vegetable game. Does Aubrey want to explain our emotion vegetables?
Sure. We have a great game that you can apply this to called Emotion Vegetable. So we're going to show you a clip in a second, but basically an instructor will take a funny character. Here's a screenshot of a character, a fun carrot that we found. You'll take this character and you'll share it on your screen and you'll say, okay, do we have a participant who wants to give this character an emotion, a name, and something about this character, and maybe even a voice. And then that actor will reenact that clip and that character. And it's a great way to, again, use your imagination, keep everybody engaged, and use that share screen feature. So now that we've had some fun techniques and games up our sleeves, let's talk about classroom management for virtual theater classes, because everything can get chaotic if everybody's all unmuted at once acting. So one thing that we found out is having classroom volunteers or teacher assistants or extra parents around can really help you moderate the room and keep classes on track.
One of my favorite things to use in my class is a feature called breakout rooms, which can be enabled in Zoom settings. They allow large classes to be broken into smaller groups within the Zoom meeting, and they're great for checking understanding and let us give individual attention to every student. So in my music class, I use breakout rooms to have my teaching assistants work with students on researching and completing assignments. I can move group to group to check their progress, and I can even be rehearsing with one student while the teaching assistants are working with all the other students. Breakout rooms are also great for sending teaching assistants to offer one-on-one support to players who may be having technical difficulties.
Sometimes these students might just also need to talk or be having something going on, and it would be great to separate them out in a breakout class instead of keeping them in the whole session so you can move the lesson along. Another great thing that we found with classroom management is assigning somebody or yourself prior to the class to moderate the chat, which sets boundaries for your classroom. You can also disable the chat in the chat box for everyone, or enable participants to only chat with the host, like this screenshot. This is a good tool when you want everyone to focus, and then you can re-enable the chat if you want to gather information or answer questions if you can't get to everyone and you're having a large chat.
You can also use the chat to write out directions. Here's an example. A teacher is just given instructions for the game, and then a volunteer writes those same instructions or learning topic in the chat.
So does anyone have an epic moment that they'd want to share? You can raise your hand on Zoom or a real hand.
My epic moment was learning more about magic.
So now we're going to put it all together.
Through the above techniques, we've been able to find some really fun, accessible, and engaging classes using theater techniques to make everyone feel connected during this time and to feel recognized.
We at EPIC have been doing several classes, social functions, and performances virtually to ensure that our players are staying connected and feeling engaged through these strange times. These are now accessible to folks all over the country. We've had students tune in from St. Louis to Chicago to upstate New York to everywhere. So feel free to visit our website and you can join too if you'd like. They're completely free. And finally, in the spirit of EPIC, we end all of our classes with an epic moment. So we'd like to share with you a clip from our class recently from our epic moments. So we hope you enjoy. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your conference.
Awesome. Great. Good epic moments, guys. Can we give everyone a silent applause?
Stay epic.
Dr. Glenda Winfield, one of our remote rock stars from Jackson State University, Mississippi, gives us some inspiring insights about the power of music.
Music is the most powerful element that we have to uplift us at this time. It's time for you to harness those powers that are inherent in music. Music is the universal language of the world. And what we have to think about is the fact that Music transcends us from doldrums to happiness all the time. You know, one of the things that you will find is that it is something that is extremely euphoric. Music. Music. Next thing I want you to do is dance. Get up and dance with your child. Put on music your child likes. Don't be judgmental. And also, while you're listening and having fun, you know, laugh. Music. Use it. Enjoy it.
Now our personalized parent-child Q&A session with Dr. Uma Soman, Listening Together, Dr. Amy Parker, EDD Comms, Portland State University, Frank Hughes, Colonial School District, Delaware, Aubrey Therian, Epic Players, Nicole D'Angelo, Epic Players, and Dr. Wendy Sapp, our moderator from Bridge Multimedia.
Thank you for all of your presentations. All right, we have quite a few questions here, and I'm going to just start with the first one that we received, and it's for Epic, actually. How do we get into these Epic classes? So Aubrey or Nicole, would you like to answer that?
I can take that. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and thanks to the other panelists. Those were so great. To get into the Epic classes, you can go to our website, www.epicplayersnyc.org. I see someone posted in the chat. Thank you, Megan. And you can register online right there. They're free. So once you register, you'll see our May classes, which are virtual, all on Zoom. We also have social events. Once you register, we'll get in contact with you, send you all of our Zoom links and passwords for the classes you signed up for, see if you need any kind of special accommodations, and then you can enjoy the class. And if you're a teacher, we can also kind of give you access to our virtual game library as well, so you can use it in your classrooms.
Great, thank you. We have a question that asks if a child, and I'm not sure who this was directed to, but it says, if a child has a hard time figuring out what to do if they have trouble with a task, what do you do? Would perhaps Amy, would you like to tackle that first, and then?
So if a child is having trouble with a specific task at home, a real nice principle is just part of a task, not thinking of a whole task to do, but maybe a small chunk of something that the child can do to feel successful. So I try to stack the deck to where if it's the smallest amount of a thing that a person can do, that they immediately, when they do that with me, a part of a task. So let's say they're helping load the dishwasher, or they're helping pull laundry out of the dryer, or they're helping with a small task at home. If they can do just one of those pieces of things, then I try to make it fun, try to recognize them for the smallest thing that they've done and build from there. So again, breaking things down, and sometimes there's something that's really naturally reinforcing in an activity. Like it's very naturally reinforcing for many children to pull out really warm clothes, or to set the table and feel very proud that they've helped the family in some way. So again, I would think of breaking it down into smaller tasks. And you may have also been thinking about Frank, some of the tasks around physical activity, and he might want to address that.
Yeah, exactly on that. Some of the tasks to make them exciting, make it different. Again, I was talking about breaking things down to the most simplest form, or really knowing your child's ability. And like in some of the videos, I forget now where it was, but the getting frustrated, Amy, during yours, getting frustrated by the end, and really trying to motivate and act like they, your child's won the World Series when they've completed the task, and really trying to find that energy to build really what might help improve.
Thank you, Amy and Frank. The next question that we have is from Alicia Nielsen. Do you have any suggestions on how to explain to the student or the parents to place the device in a place where we can see everyone well? One student who we can only see the right side of their face. Help. She has limited verbal skills, so it's hard to explain to her over Zoom. Anybody want to tackle that? Maybe our drama people?
Sure. And Nicole, if you want to hop in too, we have this trouble often, so we empathize with you. Most recently, I did a kind of FaceTime and Zoom with the child and the parent, in which I was able to model what I was asking them to do. So it does require you to have two devices, but I was able to say, okay, now stand up and take your computer and turn to the right, just like I'm doing with my computer, and then I put it here, and just walk through the steps. It did take about 30 minutes of time and a separate meeting to do, but then it enabled that person to go into our Zoom classes with a much clearer frame, no lights behind them. We were able to see their whole face. So as like other panelists are saying, it's very individualized, but I would say using two devices and modeling the behaviors and having some concentrated time to work with the parent and the child would be super helpful with that.
If I could add, we had one instance of this in an EPIC class where we had one of our players, we could not hear him. No matter what he did, we could not hear him. And, no matter how many directions, it was just really hard to get him to be audible. And so what we did a few times is like literally one of us just called him, put him on speakerphone, and then like we put the phone next to the computer so everybody could hear him until we figured out how he could be audible. So you can have like really creative kind of like basic solutions like that as well.
Thank you, Aubrey and Nicole. Our next question is for Dr. Soman from Mariana at the GBYS program in Indiana. And she asked, what would you recommend would be helpful for accommodations for children with CIs if schools go back to presenting classes?
Thank you for that question, Mariana. I would suggest for children who are using cochlear implants to really, truly use their assistive listening devices. If they have a Roger FMDM system, to figure out the Bluetooth streaming options that are available. And I'm learning about these along with all of you. So direct access to the audio, but then also an option to have captioning. With some of the older students I'm working with, I'm using Google Slides to present information and have the caption on. It is far from ideal. It is not the same as having a cart reporter, but it provides enough access, enough visual access, something to go back to that the students can continue. I've also realized that in group settings, if multiple people are talking and the presenter has a share screen model and not everybody who's talking is visible or enough of their face is visible, looking at the person to listen and speech read, get visual cues from the face has been really difficult. So advocating for that would be my suggestion. The final suggestion I would make is just like we do in our in-person school settings, pre-teaching, pre-learning about what is coming up in these classes would be extremely helpful so the student isn't walking in blind and has something to fall back on. I hope that answers your question. Email me if you want to talk more.
Thank you, Uma. The next question is for Frank, and someone has written, how can we support students with physical limitations in identifying personal success in physical activity?
How can we attack physical limitation? Like I said in the beginning, it's your assessment. So determining, what physically are you looking for your child or that student to complete, or what motion are you looking to complete? With a lot of my students who have more physical limitations, I really use three objects, actually, about a 12-inch stick that's like a 3/4 pipe, a beanbag, and a ball. And you can determine so many physical things by those three objects. Can they open their hands wide enough to accept the beanbag? Can they open their hands wide enough to accept the ball? How long will they grasp on a bar? And when you determine those things, well, now we can implement them in. Is that bar going to be the bat? Okay. Or is that ball going to be a target or a switch? So, you can use those objects as your assessment point, and then you go from there. So is your skill to do throwing? Well, how high up can their arm go? Do they know their release points? Again, breaking skills down and breaking the functions down to the simplest form, finding your child's abilities, and then build them up to where your end goal, where you want them to be. So I hope that answers it. It's it's a little bit broad, but really just those three objects. There's a lot you can learn by just using those three objects.
Thank you, Frank. That was great. Amy, the next question is for you. Do you have more example videos to share on serve and return or other teaching techniques?
I really love videos, and what's great about the video that I shared with you today is that it's still shared with that mom and child. We actually have stayed in touch over time. I do have other videos to share, and I could direct you to some on YouTube. It might be easier than me just talking through a list of videos than just to point you. But I also would say direct your attention to the Paths to Literacy website, which has a host of lesson plans, described images, pictures, and a doctoral student at Portland State University, Linda Haygood, who I mentioned in the presentation, has been really working on playing with words and playing with stories, and there are a host of videos there on the Perkins website.
Thank you, Amy. Our next question is for any of you, it says. It's from Donna Grant. Do you ever offer training for parents in rural Georgia, the mountains? They may not be as in tune with what it takes to help their child. So would anybody like to speak to what could be done for training parents?
I can start. Okay. So when our school went online, we decided that we needed to start with an orientation session to talk to the parents about what the expectations would be and how they would be participating. We've always believed that parents are the most important member of the IEP team until the child themselves can be the most important member. And just because early intervention was over and we were no longer doing home visits, the parents had somewhat taken a back seat, and we had let them take a back seat. This was an opportunity to have the parents be center stage to support their child. So we've had several sessions at school where the child hasn't been able to participate for one reason or another, but the parent has participated the whole 40 minutes or 45 minutes and has carried over what they have learned into the rest of the day, the rest of the week.
I also wanted to mention that through the Facebook or YouTube page, I set one up. It's called All Abilities Welcome, and I post how-to videos, and my intent is to use materials that are in the average home, and here's activities that you can do. Now, I did purchase PVC pipe to build materials, but through the Facebook, there is a messaging link. Parents have emailed me. I get individualized with the parents and the kids to say, let's look at your students' or your child's abilities and what is the skill that you'd like. Okay, let's talk it out and let's build from there. So going to All Abilities Welcome. If you do have questions, please email me. I love to help and explore the different options for building and getting your child more active and participating at home.
I would just say, Wendy, the best trainings of all are where parents are fully partners. I learned the most from partnership with parents. In that little video that you saw, Carson's mom was in the room with me at all times and engaging with me. I think that the leaders in our field, including Wendy and some others, have really created models where parents are at the table with the training going on, that we kind of learn and teach each other. And yes, it is helpful. I am a parent myself of a child with a disability. It's very helpful to have that role where sometimes I can just be the parent. I don't have to know all of the depth of information. I can just be the parent. But I love that when I can partner with professionals who listen to me, who can incorporate my ideas and then add their own and give us some new paths to explore as a family.
Thank you, all of you, for these wonderful suggestions. I think that is all the time we have for questions. Thanks to Nicole and Uma and Aubrey and Frank and Amy, and to all of you for watching.
Watch these other special education UnConference modules. Module 1, Platforms for Accessible Remote Learning. Opening Welcome, Ed Metz, PhD, and Sarah Brazel, PhD, EDIES. Keynote, Sarah Chomsky, Growing Up and Bouncing Back. Module 3, Curriculum Supports. Module 4, Math During COVID-19. Module 5, Adapting for Disabilities. Module 6, Research Updates. Module 7, Reaching Complex Students Through Collaboration on Distance Education. Module 8, EdTech Vendors Forum. Module 9, Closing Keynote, Richard Ellenson, What Have We Learned About Learning? Closing Comments, Tara Courchain, EDOSEP, and Kristen Kane, HHS.